Hello, hello. Welcome to Unit 2, Lesson 7. We're making our way along. Today we're going to be focusing on 180-degree rotations. This one is so nice and refreshing because everybody knows 180 is like degrees. Even if you think you don't, you do. It just means a half circle. You know about half circle, right? That'd be like me facing this way and then turning around. That's a half circle, right? Or if you do, if you skateboard, you snowboard, ski, anything like that, if you do a 180, that means you flipped around, right? Well, now we're just doing that on graphs. So here's our rule, 180-degree rotation rule. Whatever you start with x, you end up with the opposite of x. Whatever y value you started with, you end up with the opposite after you do a 180-degree rotation, right? So let's just say I have this point here. If I do a 180-degree rotation, that means, well, here's 90, there's 180. So that was counterclockwise. Here's clockwise, right? We end up at that same spot no matter which way we flip around. If I flip this way or if I flip this way, I'm still going to end up facing the opposite direction. Okay? So that's what this is referring to as well. So let's see here. Okay. Where am I? Let's see. Sorry. Given a point 1, 2 on a geometric figure, what is the new point when the figure is rotated clockwise about the origin 180 degrees? So given our rule, we have our x and our y value. In this case, that is 0.12. Each of those values should be the opposite from what they were before. Okay? So if we started out with +1, now we have -1. We started out with +2, now we have -2. Okay, and that's it. That's your final answer. All right, those are the new points after you do a 180-degree rotation. And with this one, I was realizing, I was kind of like thinking in my head, maybe this wasn't the best example because my y value didn't change because I was already at 0. But 0 doesn't have an opposite, right? So that's why that didn't change. But with this one, if I just draw a super quick graph, I can show you the difference between that and the example I gave up above. There we go. Let's see, my original point was 1, 2. So go to the right and go up 2. And it was rotated clockwise 180 degrees. So that would come all the way down here, giving us -1, +2. So notice that was half of a circle, like if I were to go like that, right? So that's where that comes from. So hopefully that helps you visualize it a little better than the example I gave earlier. Okay, number 2. All right, we've got this pretty graph, and today I actually drew it out for you. I prepared myself a little better than some of the other lessons. But let's see, given point A, which is at 2, 6, that's right here, on the triangle, where would the new point on the triangle be after a rotation of 90 degrees counterclockwise? So this time we're doing 90-degree counterclockwise. So they're bringing that back, right? Rather than the 180. Okay, so just be prepared for that. This whole lesson isn't about 180 degrees. They bring back 90s, but we have the rule, so that makes our life super easy. So with that, we can say, okay, well, I have the point 2, 6. That means my original y value is now the opposite and goes into my x value. So my x spot, so that would be -6. And then the x value goes where the y was. And that's your final answer. So in this particular case, let's see, we've got -6, 2. So if I plot that, -6 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. +2 would be right here. Okay, so that's where this would go. Okay, if I were to draw that. All right, so that would be 90 degrees. But this is your final answer. So just be on the lookout for like how much of a rotation am I making, and then you pay attention to those rules. For number 3, this is number 5 on your quick check. I thought it was like a little overwhelming with all of the triangles that they give you, but it's really not too bad. But I wanted to make sure we talked about problems like this. So given point A, which is at 2, 4, on the triangle in quadrant 1. So that's another thing that we should review, okay? I've talked about it in previous videos, but with a coordinate plane, where everything is positive, that's this one here, right? All of those values are positive. That's quadrant 1. Then going counterclockwise, you come over here. This is quadrant 2. Then we get to quadrant 3. That's where everything is negative. And then quadrant 4. And they're always represented by Roman numerals. So don't be surprised or shocked if you see that, okay? But that's why this says like quadrant 1. You could also see that as like a Roman numeral. Okay? All right. Sorry, had to stop there because it was a new vocab. So given point A, 2, 4, on the triangle in quadrant 1, this guy right here, where is the new point if the triangle is rotated 270 degrees counterclockwise? Well, 270 degrees counterclockwise, that's going this direction. This gets us to 90. There's 180. There's 270. Okay? So it's at the point, and I didn't talk about this either. Remember how we talked about like A prime? Well, here's A prime, but then they rotated it again. There's A double prime, and here's A triple prime. So what we need to know is, well, what is the value of that? Okay? And in this particular case, that is point, let's see, we can A triple prime, and then that's 0.4, -2. Okay, which you can see just by looking at this graph, but you should also have those rules written down as well. So hopefully that will help. All right, so hang in there, and if you need extra support, as always, you just let me know.